Hello again, YouTube. This is Riley, and I am making this video today to let you all know that I did a transgender, transsexual Q&A panel today at Texas State University, which is where I attend grad school, for a professor whose course I had taken in the past as an undergrad. It is a sociology of sexuality course, and among many topics in that class include the history of sexual permissiveness and conservatism throughout history, gender, sexuality, sexual identity, social construction of gender in terms of masculine and feminine, and they obviously address issues pertaining to homosexuality and transsexuality. And so, because of that, the professor and I have developed a rapport ever since I started taking that class, or since I finished that class, I should say. And she's invited me to come back and do this trans presentation every semester. So I've actually done this presentation for the last 5 semesters, 4 or 5 semesters, along with some other courses as well, including psychology of sexuality and gender, as well as anthropology of gender. Excuse me. Anyway, during this presentation, uh, I was trying to keep in check some of my attitudes and opinions that I have had against not being non-binary inclusive in some of the things that I was saying to a group of students who are non-trans, or at least to my knowledge, are not trans, and trying to remember that my experience isn't everyone's experience. And so I mentioned in my presentation, um, basically just that now I wasn't the only one on the panel, but the other person on the panel with me was a binary identified trans woman post-op, and I am a binary identified pre-op trans guy. So there was nobody on the panel to really represent non-binary identities. But when I started to discuss things like binary and non-binary identities and transgender and transsexual definitions and things like that, some of the students in the class started to ask questions pertaining to the issues surrounding non-binary identities. And keep in mind that there are students in this class who are also gender studies and women's studies majors or minors as well. So they started asking these questions, and which I wrote down here. So if I keep glancing over, that's why. And I figured I would just bring them here to you guys, and maybe you could help me answer them in a way that I don't feel like I would be giving miscommunication or misrepresenting a group that I don't identify with. Um, so I'm going to ask the questions to you guys and see how you would answer them, so that maybe next time if I give this presentation again, that I can give answers to these kinds of questions with some research done into why I'm giving those answers, so that I don't feel like I'm coming from a place of just my own thoughts or opinions, but those of people who have actually told me these things. Anyway, let's get to the questions. Um, I'm not going to answer them or give my thoughts on them. I'm just going to put the questions out there. The first question is, and I guess this question applies to binaries and non-binary identified trans people. Um, what made you identify as trans as opposed to another identity, such as butch lesbian, which we all know, well, I know there's a difference between gender and sex or sexual orientation. Um, but another part of this is what made you identify as trans if you're not going to transition, as in like go on hormones or get surgery. If you are like non-op or non-hormone, because I mentioned that in this presentation that some trans people do identify as trans, but do not get hormones or surgery. Question 2. If you identify as gender fluid or gender queer, why would you be happy in a binary gender presentation or gender specific surgery? Basically, if your gender is somewhere in between male and female, why would you seek out a surgery like having chest surgery or uh, going on hormones or anything that provides secondary sexual characteristics and or anatomy that's non-reversible to one sex or the other? Um, what does transitioning mean to you? Question 4. Do you think that non-binary people make it harder for transsexuals to seek medical transition tools, such as hormones and surgery and things like that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Question 6. Do you think that gender categories are necessary? Do you think that we should get rid of gender altogether? Question 7. Why do more people who are born female seem to identify with these terms like gender queer or gender fluid as opposed to people who were born male? And the last question is, why does it feel as though people who study things like sociology, women's studies, or gender studies tend to be the people who identify outside of binaries? Um, anyway, like I said, I'm not going to answer these questions here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on these questions. So, comments down below or response videos. Either way, I'd like to hear it. I'd like to get some dialogue started, maybe, and see what we come up with. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.